Let me take you on a journey to understand just how much the United States spends on its military, and the numbers are shocking. Here's Russia, China, India, some of the largest military powers in the world, but combine them all, and the United States still outspends them. In fact, the US spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined. But what I really want to know is, what exactly are we spending this enormous sum on? Inside this circle is where the magic and the mystery happens. Here, we find everything the US military spends money on, from soldier salaries to something as unexpected as elementary schools for their kids. You'll find $21 million helicopters, missiles that cost $1.6 million apiece, and the Pentagon's obsession with developing new futuristic weapons and tech, like ship-based laser systems straight out of a sci-fi movie. And the star of the show? The F-35 fighter jet. By the time we're done paying for it, the F-35 will have cost American taxpayers a jaw-dropping $2 trillion. That's right, trillion, almost half of the budget Congress sets aside each year, goes to the military. That's more than what's spent on education, health science, energy, and the environment combined. Now let's break it down and see where this money really goes. Let's start with the biggest chunk. Operations and maintenance, $352 billion. That's larger than the economy of an entire country, like Portugal. This includes everything from transportation, fuel, and equipment maintenance to the healthcare for active duty personnel, which costs $39 billion. The US military also handles environmental cleanup in areas where they've left behind unexploded bombs or spilled chemicals. And then there's disaster relief, anti-drug programs, and even security at international sporting events like the Olympics. Now, the US has around 1,250 military bases, and about 800 of those aren't even in the United States. They're spread across the globe. These overseas bases are expensive to maintain. Picture this. You've got Pizza Hut, McDonald's, and grocery stores stocked with products flown in from the US just to make soldiers feel like they're back home. But why does the US have so many bases around the world? Why do we spend so much more than any other nation? Because the US military isn't a regular army. It's a global powerhouse, reaching into every corner of the world to maintain control. Next, we have military personnel costs, $172 billion. The US military employs over 3.4 million people, making it one of the largest employers in the world. This number covers salaries, benefits, healthcare, and retirement for soldiers, reservists, and civilian staff. The Pentagon also spends $140 billion on research and development, investing in future tech like AI, drones, autonomous submarines, and military exoskeletons. Some of this technology has everyday applications like GPS and the internet, which were first developed by the military. Now let's talk about procurement. That's the buying of military gear. The Pentagon spends $167 billion on things like jets, tanks, and missiles. A single jet costs $142 million, and the US bought 77 of them last year. Missiles? Each one costs $1.6 million. Tanks? $372,000 each, and we're buying thousands of them. Destroyers? $8.2 billion for 3 ships. The numbers are staggering. Over half of this military spending goes to private corporations, about $466 billion. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, these companies dominate the defense industry, and with so few competitors, prices skyrocket. The Pentagon used to pay $25,000 for a Stinger missile. Now they're paying nearly $500,000 for the same missile. Corruption and overcharging are rampant, with contractors inflating prices for things like ball bearings, charging $3,357 for something that could be bought for $15. Many lawmakers responsible for approving the military budget own stocks in these defense companies. The more we spend on defense, the more their stocks go up. And these companies strategically set up operations across the country, creating jobs in key political districts. Lawmakers are incentivized to keep military spending high to protect jobs in their states. It's political engineering, and it's brilliant. Defense contractors know how the system works. They contribute millions to the campaigns of lawmakers like Senator Roger Wicker, who sits on committees that approve military spending. In Mississippi, the largest employer is a defense contractor's shipyard. More military spending means more jobs for his people and a better chance of re-election for Wicker. It's a virtuous cycle that keeps the money flowing. All of this paints a picture of why we spend so much on defense. But here's the other side of the coin: diplomacy. The US spends far less on diplomacy than it does on defense. Diplomacy is harder, longer, and doesn't provide the same immediate returns. Yet diplomacy is how we truly solve global problems. The more we invest in military spending, the less we invest in things that genuinely make us secure, like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Is spending more on the military really making us safer, or are we missing the bigger picture? I deeply respect those who serve, but the system that funnels so much of our money into military spending, that's worth questioning. This system incentivizes the wrong priorities that have more to do with profit margins and political power than with our actual security. All of this is leading us toward endless escalation with no clear end in sight. There's a well-documented paradox. Strong militaries are often the key to avoiding conflict, deterring enemies, and keeping peace. But the more we spend on our military, the more our adversaries feel compelled to keep up. It's a cycle we saw during the Cold War, with the US and the Soviet Union each building up their nuclear arsenals until it reached absurd levels. Diplomacy and cooperation, not endless military spending, are how we solve our differences. No one has ever achieved sustainable peace by simply making more weapons. And while we pour so much into our military, that's money that could be spent elsewhere, on healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the things that actually improve the quality of life. The system we have today, where military spending feeds back into corporate profits and political re-election campaigns, is setting us on a dangerous path of infinite escalation. This cycle of increasing military spending isn't just about defense. It's about maintaining a system where political power and corporate profits drive decisions, often at the expense of long-term stability and real security for the American people. When we allocate such a massive portion of the federal budget to the military, we're making a choice that leaves less room for investments in the things that truly impact our daily lives. Consider infrastructure, roads, bridges, clean water. These are things that actually affect how safe and secure we feel in our communities. Yet while we're spending billions on jets and missiles, many of these critical systems are crumbling. The Flint water crisis is just one example of how underfunded infrastructure can threaten public safety. And it's not just water systems. Our schools, hospitals, and public health systems also struggle with insufficient funding. There's a concept called human security, which broadens the idea of security beyond just military strength. It includes economic security, food security, health security, environmental security, all the things that contribute to the well-being and safety of individuals and communities. If we were to rethink our budget with these priorities in mind, we might find that we don't need to keep escalating military spending to feel secure. As the US spends more on its military, other countries feel the need to respond. Russia, China, and other global powers ramp up their defense budgets, triggering an arms race that increases tensions rather than diffusing them. The irony is that by building up our military, we're not necessarily making the world safer. We're just pushing everyone else to do the same. This creates a global environment where conflict becomes more likely, not less. In the end, we must ask ourselves, what kind of future are we building? One where we are constantly preparing for war, or one where we are investing in peace, stability, and the well-being of all? The choice is ours, and it's a choice that will define the future of our nation for generations to come. If this video got you thinking, it's time to take action. Hit that like button if you found this insightful, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives like this. Let's keep the conversation going. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think we should prioritize our budget?